The glass doors of Meridian Partners gleamed in the mid-afternoon sun as I stepped into the lobby, a small white bakery box clutched in my hands. 6 months of engagement, and I'd never surprised Julian at work before. Today marked 3 years since our first date, the kind of milestone only I seem to remember. But this time I was determined to make it special. "Hi, I'm here to see Julian Keller," I told the receptionist, a stylish woman with geometric earrings who looked up from her computer with a practiced smile. "I'm his fiancé, Nora. I brought his favorite dessert." The bakery box held 2 slices of olive oil cake from Lucia's, where we'd had our first date. Julian had declared it the best cake he'd ever tasted, though he rarely indulged in sweets. A small surprise, something thoughtful but not overwhelming. That was our balance. I was the spontaneous one. He was the planner. The receptionist's smile faltered just enough that something cold slithered down my spine. "Oh," she said, her eyes darting to her screen and then back to me. "Mr. Keller is in a meeting right now with his—" She hesitated, her fingernail tapping once against her keyboard. "With his wife." The bakery box nearly slipped from my fingers. "I'm sorry." "His wife. Vanessa Keller." The receptionist's expression shifted to confusion, then widening realization. "Oh God, There must be some mistake," I said, my voice strangely steady despite the sudden roaring in my ears. "Julian Keller, tall, dark hair, corner office on the east side." "He's my fiancé." The receptionist's face had drained of color. "Ma'am, I've been working here for 2 years. Vanessa Keller comes in at least once a month. They have 2 children." The bakery box crumpled slightly in my grip as the world tilted beneath my feet. 6 months earlier. "Do you think we're moving too fast?" I asked Julian as we lay in my bed, moonlight slanting across the rumpled sheets. I turned the engagement ring on my finger, a simple emerald-cut diamond that caught the light in surprising ways. We'd been dating for 2.5 years when he proposed. Julian propped himself up on one elbow, his dark hair falling across his forehead in that way that still made my heart skip. At 42, he was 11 years older than me, with faint lines at the corners of his eyes that deepened when he smiled. "If anything, we've been cautious," he said, taking my hand. 2.5 years is hardly impulsive." I nodded, though something still nagged at me, a feeling I couldn't quite identify. "It's just that I still feel like there's so much I don't know about you." Julian laughed, but there was no mockery in it. "What don't you know? Ask me anything." I'd met Julian at a charity gala where I was photographing the event for the non-profit I worked for. He was there representing his investment firm, Meridian Partners. Our conversation that night had flowed so easily that when he asked me to dinner the following weekend, I'd said yes despite my usual wariness of men in finance. "You're always so private about your past," I said. "Before Chicago, before Meridian, you barely talk about your time in New York." His expression shifted subtly. "That's because it was boring. Finance is finance. The only difference was the view from my office window." He kissed my temple. "I left that life behind when I moved here." "You never mentioned friends from back then. Or your family." Julian sighed. "My parents passed away years ago." "I told you that." "And I'm not close with my brother. We're very different people." He gently tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "As for friends, people drift apart. When I moved here, I wanted a fresh start." It wasn't the first time we'd had some version of this conversation. Julian always managed to redirect, to make me feel like I was searching for complications where there were none. "I know it sounds strange," he added, "but I've never been happier than I am with you. Nora, the past is just the past." I studied his face in the dim light. Julian had this way of looking at me that made me feel completely seen, like I was remarkable and extraordinary in ways even I didn't recognize. It was intoxicating to be loved like that. "Okay," I said, letting it go again. "But you're going to have to get used to talking about yourself more once we're married." "That's part of the deal." He smiled, relief visible in the relaxation of his shoulders. "I can live with that." The first time I noticed something truly off was 3 months after our engagement. We were at my apartment on a Thursday evening when Julian's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his entire demeanor changed. "I need to take this," he said, already walking toward my balcony. "Work emergency." Through the glass, I watched his back stiffen as he spoke. His free hand gestured sharply, then ran through his hair, a nervous habit I'd rarely seen. When he returned 10 minutes later, his face was composed but tight around the edges. "Everything okay?" I asked, keeping my tone casual. "Investment crisis with a client in Hong Kong. Time difference makes it complicated." He slipped his phone into his pocket. "I need to head into the office." "At 9 o'clock at night?" "Global markets don't sleep, unfortunately." He kissed me quickly. "Don't wait up." "I might be very late." After he left, I sat on my couch feeling unsettled. Julian had never mentioned clients in Hong Kong before. In fact, he'd specifically told me that Meridian Partners focused on domestic investments, primarily in the Midwest. The next morning, he texted that he'd gone straight to his condo from the office and would see me that evening. When I asked how the crisis had resolved, he gave a vague answer about market stabilization. I told myself I was being paranoid. Julian was a managing partner at his firm. It made sense that there would be aspects of his work he couldn't discuss in detail, but a seed of doubt had been planted. And over the following weeks, I began to notice other inconsistencies. Julian never invited me to his condo, always preferring to stay at my apartment. He claimed his place was being renovated, then that he'd leased it to a colleague's relative. When I asked to see it anyway, he deflected. He was unreachable every other weekend, citing intensive work retreats. Yet when I asked questions about these retreats on Monday mornings, his answers were oddly unspecific, as if he hadn't actually attended. His social media presence was minimal. The few photos I'd posted of us together remained untagged. When I jokingly suggested we change our relationship statuses to engaged, he'd frowned and said he preferred to keep his private life offline. For security reasons, he'd explained. In finance, you have to be careful. Then there was the office question. Despite our engagement, Julian had never invited me to see where he worked. I'd dropped the subject after he explained that Meridian had strict visitor policies, but it had always struck me as strange. Now, standing in the lobby with the receptionist's words still ringing in my ears, all these small oddities coalesced into a horrifying picture. "What floor is his office on?" I asked, my voice hollow. The receptionist hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. 12th floor. "But Ms." I was already walking toward the elevators, the bakery box still clutched in my hands. My heart pounded in my ears, but a strange calm had settled over me. I needed to see for myself. The elevator doors closed, and I caught my reflection in the polished metal, cheeks flushed, eyes too bright. I'd spent extra time on my appearance today, wearing the forest green dress Julian had once said brought out the gold flecks in my eyes. My dark hair was gathered in a low chignon, small gold earrings catching the light. I'd wanted to look perfect for this surprise. What a joke. The 12th floor opened to a sleek reception area with Meridian Partners displayed in understated silver letters on the wall. A different receptionist looked up as I approached. "I'm looking for Julian Keller's office," I said. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, I'm his fiancé." The young man's eyebrows rose slightly. "I'll see if he's available." "Your name?" "Nora Ellis." He picked up his phone, pressed a button, and spoke quietly. After a moment, he nodded. "You can go in. Down the hall, 3rd door on the right." The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly. Each step felt like moving through water, time slowing as I approached the partially open door with Julian Keller, managing partner, etched on a plaque beside it. From inside, I heard Julian's laugh, that warm, rich sound I'd fallen in love with. Then a woman's voice, the words indistinct but the tone intimate. I pushed the door open. Julian sat behind a large desk, leaning back in his chair. Across from him, perched on the edge of the desk, was a woman in an elegant cream suit. Her hand rested casually on his shoulder, and they were both smiling about something. They looked up simultaneously as the door swung wider. The woman's expression remained neutral, curious. But Julian, I watched as recognition, shock, and naked fear chased across his face in the span of a heartbeat. "Nora," he breathed, standing up so abruptly that the woman had to step back. "What are you doing here?" The woman looked between us, her perfectly shaped eyebrows drawing together. She was beautiful in a refined way. Honey blonde hair cut in a sleek bob, makeup understated but flawless. A large diamond ring caught the light as she folded her arms. "Julian?" she said, and the single word held a wealth of questions. I stepped fully into the office, still holding the crushed bakery box. "The receptionist downstairs told me you were in a meeting with your wife," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I assume that's you?" The woman's posture stiffened. "Yes, I'm Vanessa Keller." Her gaze hardened as she turned to Julian. "And you must be his mistress." A strange, choked sound escaped Julian's throat. "Vanessa, please." "Mistress?" I repeated, the word bitter on my tongue. That's not how he described me when he gave me this. I held up my left hand, the engagement ring catching the light. Vanessa's eyes widened as she took in the ring, her composure cracking for the first time. She looked down at her own hand, then back at mine, as if comparing the similar styles of the diamonds. "You proposed to her?" Her voice was deadly quiet. "I can explain," Julian said, moving around the desk with his hands raised like he was approaching a wild animal. "Both of you, please, just listen." "How long?" Vanessa demanded, cutting him off. "How long have you been engaged to this woman while coming home to me and our children every night?" The word children hit me like a physical blow. I swayed slightly, gripping the edge of a bookshelf to steady myself. 6 months, I answered for him, watching Julian flinch. "We've been together for 3 years. He told me he lived alone, that he wasn't close with his family." I looked directly at Vanessa. "He never mentioned a wife or children." Vanessa's laugh was bitter. "Well, he's had plenty of practice compartmentalizing his life. This isn't the first time, is it, Julian?" She turned back to me. "Did he happen to mention why he left New York, his previous firm?" Julian stepped between us, his face ashen. "Vanessa, don't—" "He was asked to resign," she continued, ignoring him. "After his affair with the managing director's daughter became public. We moved here for a fresh start." The quotation marks were audible in her tone. "I gave him another chance, for the sake of our family." I stared at Julian, this man I thought I knew intimately. In that moment, he seemed like a complete stranger. "We have 2 daughters, Vanessa said, her voice softer now, almost sympathetic. "Sophie is 9 and Emma is 6. "Stop," Julian said, his voice cracking. "Please, both of you. This isn't the way to handle this." "How should we handle it, Julian?" I asked, finding my voice again. "Should I have called ahead for an appointment? Would that have given you enough time to prepare your lies?" He turned to me, and I saw him shift into the Julian I knew. Gentle eyes, earnest expression. "Nora, what we have is real. You have to believe that." "What we had," I corrected, "was a fiction." "No." He moved toward me, stopping when I stepped back. "My feelings for you were never fake. I fell in love with you that first night. I just didn't know how to—" "How to what?" Vanessa interrupted. "How to mention you were already married with 2 children. Seems like a simple thing to disclose before proposing." Julian ran both hands through his hair, his composure completely shattered. "I know this looks terrible. It is terrible. But I've been trying to figure out how to make this right. I was going to tell you both. I just needed time to—" "To what?" I demanded. "To figure out which family you preferred? Were we competing without knowing it?" The bakery box was still in my hand, absurdly intact despite everything. I set it down, on his desk, opening the lid to reveal the 2 slices of olive oil cake, now slightly squashed. "Happy anniversary," I said flatly. 3 years since our first date at Lucia's. Remember how you said it was the best cake you'd ever had? Or was that a lie, too? Julian stared at the cake, his face crumpling. That wasn't a lie. None of those moments were lies. Just the context they existed in, I said. Just your entire identity. Vanessa had gone very still, watching the interaction with narrowed eyes. How old are you, Nora? 31, I answered, confused by the question. She nodded, as if confirming something to herself. I was 30 when I met Julian, young enough to be impressed by his success, his worldliness, old enough to want stability. She gave me an assessing look. Let me guess, he was attentive in ways no man had ever been before. He remembered every detail you shared, made you feel understood completely. My silence was confirmation enough. It's his specialty, she continued, her voice clinical now. Finding women who are accomplished but somehow lonely, making them feel chosen. Stop talking about me like, I'm not here, Julian snapped, a flash of anger breaking through his distress. This isn't some calculated pattern. I fell in love with both of you. You don't get to claim love while systematically deceiving us, Vanessa said. She turned to me. I should hate you, but I can't. You're as much a victim in this as I am. I shook my head slowly. No, not as much. You've lost years, a marriage, the father of your children. I twisted the engagement ring off my finger and placed it beside the cake box. I've just lost an illusion. 2 days later, I sat in a coffee shop with a woman I'd never thought I'd meet, let alone share confidences with. Vanessa Keller looked different in casual clothes, jeans, a soft sweater, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. More real somehow. I appreciate you meeting me, she said, wrapping her hands around her mug. I know this is unconventional. That was one word for it. After the confrontation in Julian's office, I'd fled the building, ignoring his calls and texts. I'd spent the night alternating between numbed disbelief and crushing pain. The following morning, I'd received a text from an unknown number. This is Vanessa Keller. I think we should talk. Just us. Have you spoken to him? I asked. Vanessa's mouth tightened. He didn't come home that night. Showed up the next morning claiming he'd stayed at a hotel to give me space. She shook her head. He wants to talk. It out? Find some solution that doesn't involve blowing up our lives. What did you tell him? That I needed time to think. She studied me. What about you? I haven't responded to any of his messages. I stared down at my untouched coffee. I can't even look at them. There are dozens. Vanessa nodded, unsurprised. He's desperate to control the narrative, to make us understand his perspective. Did you know? I asked suddenly. Was there any part of you that suspected? She sighed, running a finger along the rim of her mug. There were signs, inconsistencies, late nights, mysterious work emergencies. But after New York? She broke off, took a sip of her coffee. After New York, we went to counseling. He promised it was over, that he was committed to our family. I chose to believe him because the alternative was too painful. How long have you been married? I asked. 11 years. We met in New York when I was working in publishing. He was already successful, charismatic. Everyone wanted to be around Julian. A sad smile crossed her face, including me. I recognized the Julian she described, the man who could walk into a room and immediately command attention, not through force but through charm. The man who made everyone feel important, interesting. When did things change? I asked. Vanessa considered this. The first few years were good. Then I got pregnant with Sophie, and something shifted. Nothing dramatic, just a gradual distance. He was supportive, present, but emotionally elsewhere. She looked up at me. That's when the first affair happened. A colleague from his firm. I found out when she contacted me after he ended things. My stomach churned at the thought of Julian with another woman, with multiple other women. It shouldn't have mattered in the face of his marriage, his children, but it did. Then came the affair with his boss's daughter, Vanessa continued. That's what cost him his position at the New York firm. We moved to Chicago for his new job, and I thought, she shook her head. I really believed we were starting over. When did you have your second daughter? I asked. Emma was born 2 years after we moved here. Her expression softened at the mention of her children. Julian was a different person when she was born. Attentive, present. I thought maybe he'd finally grown up, finally committed. She looked at me directly. When did you meet him? 3 years ago, at a charity gala. I swallowed past the tightness in my throat. Emma would have been 3 then? Vanessa nodded, her lips pressing together. The timing tracks. He started having more late nights, more weekend commitments. She studied me for a moment. I'm not asking this to hurt you, but I need to know. Do you think there were others besides you? The question hadn't occurred to me, but once she voiced it, my mind raced through the past 3 years. Had there been periods when Julian was less available, when he seemed distracted or distant? I don't know, I admitted. There were times when he was harder to reach. He always explained it as work pressure, and I believed him. I met her gaze. But given everything, I can't say for certain. Vanessa nodded, resignation in her eyes. Neither can I. And that's the problem, isn't it? Once the trust is broken this thoroughly, you question everything. We sat in silence for a moment, 2 women connected by the same betrayal. What are you going to do? I finally asked. Vanessa straightened her shoulders, a new resolve hardening her features. Before I met you, I was willing to try again. For the girls, for our history together. But seeing you, hearing your story, she shook her head. I can't do it anymore. I can't model that kind of relationship for my daughters. You're leaving him? Yes. She sounded certain, though her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her coffee. I've already contacted a lawyer. I'm meeting with her tomorrow. I felt a strange mix of emotions, validation that Julian's betrayal warranted such a decisive response, sympathy for this woman and her children, and underneath it all, a lingering ache for what I'd thought I had. What about you? Vanessa asked. What will you do? Cut him out of my life, I said without hesitation. Delete his number, block him everywhere, return anything he's left at my apartment. He won't accept that easily, she warned. Julian doesn't like losing control. He'll try everything to get you to talk to him. I know. And I did. I could already imagine the escalating tactics, the messages alternating between desperate apologies and logical explanations, the gifts, the appeals to our connection. But I'm done. There's nothing he could say that would make this okay. Vanessa studied me, then reached into her bag and pulled out a business card. This is my lawyer's information. You might not think you need legal help, but... She slid the card across the table. Julian can be persistent. If he won't respect your boundaries, don't hesitate to get a restraining order. I took the card, unsettled by the implication. Has he ever been dangerous? Not physically, she clarified. But emotionally manipulative, absolutely. He'll find ways to insert himself into your life until you talk to him. Trust me. As we prepared to leave, Vanessa paused. There's something else you should know. She pulled out her phone, scrolled through it, then turned the screen toward me. This is from 5 months ago, a charity event for the Children's Hospital. The photo showed Julian in a tuxedo, his arm around Vanessa's waist. They were smiling for the camera, the picture of a successful, happy couple. 5 months ago, I repeated, the timeline sinking in. We were already engaged, Vanessa nodded. He didn't just compartmentalize his life. He was actively playing both roles. The devoted husband in public, the besotted fiancé with you. She put her phone away. I wanted you to see it because it helped me understand the extent of his deception. This wasn't just omission. It was calculated performance. I felt sick, remembering all the times Julian had told me he was at work events when he was actually attending galas with his wife. All the weekends he'd been unavailable because he was with his family. Thank you, I said, meaning it despite the pain. For showing me that, for reaching out. Vanessa gave me a sad smile. Women should warn each other about men like Julian. I wish someone had warned me. The knocking started at 7:30 p.m., 3 sharp raps followed by Julian's voice calling my name. I'd been expecting him. Vanessa had texted earlier to say he'd discovered we'd met and was frantic. I stood in my living room, arms crossed, heart racing despite my resolve. Through the peephole, I could see him, hair disheveled, wearing the same clothes he'd had on at the office 2 days ago. He looked terrible. Good, I thought savagely. Nora, please, he called. I know you're in there. Your car is outside. I just want to talk. I didn't move. 5 minutes, he pleaded. That's all I'm asking. 5 minutes to explain. There's nothing to explain, I wanted to shout. But engaging would only encourage him. I'm not leaving until you open the door, he said, his voice hardening slightly. I'll stay here all night if I have to, I believed him. Julian had always been persistent, a quality I'd once admired. Now it felt threatening. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door but blocked the entrance with my body. Julian's face flooded with relief. Nora, thank God, you have 5 minutes, I said coldly. You can talk from there. His eyes darted past me into the apartment, then back to my face. Can I come in, please? This isn't a conversation for a hallway. This isn't a conversation at all. It's you talking, me listening, and then you leaving. 5 minutes. Julian ran a hand through his hair, composing himself. Okay. He took a breath. First, I need you to know that I love you. Everything between us has been real. The connection, the understanding, that wasn't fake. Just the context, I said flatly. Just the fact that you're married with children. I should have told you, he admitted, his voice cracking. I know that. But when we first met, I didn't think it would become serious. And then by the time I fell in love with you, I was terrified of losing you. So you proposed instead? That was your solution? Julian looked pained. I know how it sounds, but I meant it, Nora. I want a future with you. I was trying to find a way to make that happen without destroying everyone in the process. By living a double life indefinitely? By marrying me while still married to Vanessa? No. I was going to tell Vanessa, ask for a divorce. I've been building up to it, trying to prepare. For 3 years? I cut in, incredulous. You needed 3 years to build up to it? And in the meantime, you thought proposing to me was appropriate? Julian took a step closer, stopping when I tensed. My marriage has been over for years, Nora. We stay together for the girls, for appearances. What Vanessa and I have isn't real anymore. Not like what you and I have. I spoke to Vanessa, I said, watching his face. She showed me pictures of the two of you at charity events 5 months ago. After our engagement, you looked very much like a couple. He paled slightly. That's just for show. For my career. For the girls' stability. Stop lying, I said, my voice sharp. If your marriage was truly over, you wouldn't have hidden its existence from me. You wouldn't have fabricated an entirely different life. I was trying to protect everyone, he insisted. Including you. I didn't want to burden you with the complications of my divorce, my custody arrangements. That wasn't your decision to make, I said. You took away my agency, my ability to make an informed choice about our relationship. Julian's expression shifted, frustration seeping through. Would you have given me a chance if I'd told you I was married on our first date? Of course not. Exactly, he said, as if this proved his point. But look at what we built, the connection we found. If I'd followed the rules, we would have missed out on something rare and beautiful. I stared at him, incredulous. Are you seriously trying to frame your deception as some kind of romantic gesture? As if lying to me for 3 years was an act of love? That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant, I said. You're rewriting your calculated deception as a love story. It's manipulative and disgusting. Julian's calm facade cracked. What do you want me to say, Nora? That I'm a monster? That I deliberately set out to hurt you and Vanessa? I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but my feelings for you have always been genuine. Your feelings don't matter, I said, the words cutting through his defense. Your actions do. And your actions show a pattern of selfishness, dishonesty, and disregard for the people you claim to love. He flinched as if I'd struck him. That's not fair. Not fair, I repeated, anger rising. You've been cheating on your wife for our entire relationship. You proposed to me while still playing the devoted husband and father. You created an elaborate web of lies that you maintained daily for years. And you want to talk about what's not fair? I was going to fix it, he insisted. I was trying to find the right time, the right way. There is no right way to tell your fiancé that you have a wife and 2 children she knew nothing about. I was shouting now, my control finally slipping. There is no scenario where this ends well for everyone. You weren't looking for the right time. You were prolonging your fantasy for as long as possible. Julian's face hardened. You're not even trying to understand my position. I've been trapped in an unhappy marriage. Then you should have ended it before starting a relationship with me, I cut in. That's what people with integrity do. It's not that simple when there are children involved. Stop using your daughters as an excuse, I said, disgusted. Children deserve parents who model honesty and respect, not deception and betrayal. Julian took a deep breath, visibly trying to regain control of the conversation. Nora, please. I know I've hurt you terribly. I know I've broken your trust. But what we have is worth fighting for. I'm going to leave Vanessa. I've already told her I want a divorce. After she caught you, I noted. Not before. The timing doesn't change my intention, he argued. I want a future with you. I want to make this right. I laughed, the sound hollow. There is no making this right, Julian. You can't fix this with pretty words or grand gestures. You are fundamentally not the person I thought you were. That's not true, he said desperately. The man you fell in love with, that's the real me. The way I am with you is who I truly am. The real you is someone who could go home to his wife and children after proposing to another woman, I said quietly. The real you is someone who could look me in the eyes and lie, day after day, about the most basic facts of his life. I could never trust that person. I could never build a life with him. Julian's face crumpled, the last of his composure vanishing. Please don't say that. Please don't throw away everything we have. You threw it away, I said, stepping back to close the door. The moment you decided your desires were more important than the truth. Nora, wait! He moved forward, his hand catching the door. Your 5 minutes are up, I said, pushing against his resistance. Don't contact me again. Don't come here. It's over. I'm not giving up on us, he insisted, his voice breaking. I can't. There is no us, I said, forcing the words past the lump in my throat. There never really was. With that, I shut the door and turned the deadbolt, sliding down to the floor as his protests continued from the hallway. I covered my ears, tears finally breaking free after days of shock-induced numbness. Eventually, his voice faded. A text notification lit up my phone. I'll give you space, but this isn't over. What we have is worth fighting for. I love you. I deleted the message without responding and blocked his number. 3 months later. The September sun warmed my face as I sat on a park bench, watching a group of children chase each other across the playground. A woman with honey blonde hair approached, carrying 2 coffee cups. 1 oat milk latte, extra shot, Vanessa said, handing me a cup before sitting beside me. Thanks. I accepted the coffee with a smile that still felt slightly surreal. Of all the unexpected outcomes of Julian's betrayal, this tentative friendship with his wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, was perhaps the strangest. How did the meeting with the mediator go? I asked. Vanessa sighed, stretching her legs out in front of her. About as well as can be expected. Julian's still fighting the custody arrangement, but his lawyer is starting to hint that he should accept my terms. She took a sip of her coffee. Turns out his firm isn't thrilled about the potential publicity of a messy divorce. Especially given the circumstances, after our confrontation, Julian had continued his attempts to contact me. Flowers delivered to my workplace, emails from new addresses, even a handwritten letter slipped under my door. I'd maintained my silence, though each contact had reopened the wound. Eventually, faced with the reality of Vanessa's divorce proceedings and my continued refusal to engage, he'd stopped. "And the girls?" I asked gently. "Adjusting," Vanessa said, her gaze drifting to the playground. "Sophie understands more than she lets on. Emma still asks when Daddy's coming home." Her expression tightened. "He sees them every other weekend." "It's cordial," I nodded, uncertain what comfort I could offer. In the aftermath of Julian's exposure, Vanessa and I had continued to meet occasionally, finding unexpected solidarity in our shared experience. What had begun as information-sharing sessions, comparing timelines, piecing together the full extent of Julian's deceptions, had gradually evolved into something more like friendship. "What about you?" Vanessa asked, turning to study me. "How's the new job?" After everything, I'd found it impossible to continue at the nonprofit where I'd met Julian. Too many memories, too many pitying or curious glances from colleagues who'd witnessed our relationship. I'd accepted a position with a different organization, one focused on supporting women leaving abusive relationships, a cause that felt newly personal. "It's good," I said. "Challenging but fulfilling. The director is amazing. She built the organization from nothing after leaving her own abusive marriage." "I'm glad," Vanessa said sincerely. "You deserve good things, Nora." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the children play. "Did I tell you?" Vanessa said suddenly. "I got a call from a woman named Rebecca last week. She worked with Julian at Meridian until about a year ago." I tensed, setting my coffee down. "And?" "She'd heard about our separation through the grapevine. She wanted to let me know that Julian had pursued her aggressively when she first joined the firm. She rejected him, but—" Vanessa shook her head. "She suspected there were others. She mentioned a client's daughter, an event planner for the firm's holiday party." My stomach twisted. "During our relationship?" "Some of it, yes." Vanessa's voice was gentle. "I thought you should know, not to cause more pain, but because the truth matters," I finished. "Even when it hurts," she nodded. "Exactly. I'd suspected as much, in the darker moments of the past 3 months. Julian's betrayal had forced me to reevaluate not just our relationship, but my own judgment. How had I missed the signs? Why had I accepted his vague explanations, his deflections, his unavailability? "It wasn't your fault," Vanessa said, seeming to read my thoughts. "Julian is exceptionally good at compartmentalizing, at making people see what they want to see." She gave me a sad smile. "I was married to him for 11 years and still missed it. I keep thinking about all the red flags," I admitted. "All the inconsistencies I noticed, but dismissed." "That's what manipulators count on," Vanessa said. "They make you doubt your own perceptions. They reframe your concerns as insecurity or mistrust." She was right. How many times had Julian turned my questions back on me, suggesting I was being paranoid, or that my suspicions reflected my own trust issues rather than his behavior? "I talked to my therapist about it yesterday," I said. "About how I could have been so blind. And what did they say? That skilled manipulators target empathetic people, those who want to see the best in others, who give second chances, who try to understand before judging." I picked up my coffee again, cradling the warm cup between my palms. Apparently, my best qualities made me vulnerable to his worst ones. Vanessa considered this. There's truth in that. But those qualities, empathy, compassion, benefit of the doubt, they're still strengths. The answer isn't to become cynical or mistrustful. Just more discerning, I suggested. "Exactly." She smiled. "Maintain your open heart, but pair it with open eyes." From the playground came a child's delighted shriek. A little girl with honey blonde hair waved frantically from the top of the slide. "Mom, watch me!" Vanessa waved back. "I see you, Emma, go ahead." I watched as the girl slid down, her face alight with joy. Despite everything Julian had done, he had helped create these beautiful children. There was something both tragic and hopeful in that contradiction. "How do you move forward?" I asked suddenly. "After 11 years, 2 children, how do you start over?" Vanessa considered the question, her gaze still on her daughter. "One day at a time," she said finally. "I focus on what I can control, creating stability for the girls, rebuilding my career, finding joy in small moments." She glanced at me. And I remind myself that leaving was an act of self-respect. That modeling honesty and courage for my daughters is more important than maintaining a broken family for appearance's sake. I nodded, understanding. My own healing process had been different but followed a similar principle, reclaiming my narrative, my autonomy, my ability to trust my instincts. I got a text from him yesterday, I admitted. A new number. He wanted to meet, to clear the air now that some time has passed. I shook my head. I didn't respond. Good, Vanessa said firmly. He's still trying to control the story, to rewrite history in a way that casts him as misunderstood rather than manipulative. She hesitated. The mediator mentioned he's been seeing someone, a paralegal at his lawyer's firm. I felt a twinge of something, not jealousy exactly, but a complex emotion that encompassed concern for this unknown woman and a strange sense of vindication. Julian hadn't changed. He'd simply found a new target. Should we warn her? I asked half seriously. Vanessa laughed, though there was little humor in it. I've thought about it. But she wouldn't believe us, not yet. He's still in his perfect boyfriend phase with her. She sighed. All we can do is hope she sees through him sooner than we did. A comfortable silence fell between us. On the playground, Emma was now chasing another child around the jungle gym, her laughter carrying across the park. I have something for you, Vanessa said, reaching into her bag. She pulled out a small envelope and handed it to me. An invitation. I'm having a small gathering next weekend. Just a few friends, some wine, good food. A housewarming of sorts. I opened the envelope, touched by the gesture. You found a place? Closed last week. A townhouse not far from the girls' school. Her smile was tinged with pride. It's the first property I've owned in my name alone, ever. That's amazing, I said sincerely. I'd love to come. Good. Vanessa stood, gathering her belongings. I should get Emma. She has a play date in an hour. She hesitated, then added, Bring someone if you'd like. The invitation includes a +1. I raised an eyebrow. Playing matchmaker? She laughed, a genuine sound this time. Not necessarily, but I've noticed how you mention your new colleague David in every conversation. I felt heat rise to my cheeks. He's just a friend. For now, Vanessa said with a knowing smile. But when you're ready, if you're ready, don't let Julian rob you of the chance for something real. That would be giving him too much power. As I watched her walk away, calling to Emma with outstretched arms, I considered her words. The past 3 months had been about survival, about processing grief and betrayal. I hadn't thought beyond that, hadn't allowed myself to imagine a future that included trust or intimacy again. But perhaps Vanessa was right. Perhaps the truest victory over Julian's deception wasn't just surviving it, but eventually thriving despite it. Not allowing his betrayal to define my capacity for connection moving forward. I took out my phone and scrolled to David's contact. We'd been texting regularly since I joined the organization. Friendly banter about work, book recommendations, occasional coffee during breaks. Nothing romantic, nothing rushed. Just the slow, careful building of trust. Any plans next Saturday? I typed, then hesitated with my finger over the send button. Across the park, I could see Vanessa swinging Emma in a circle, both of their faces alight with laughter. 2 people rebuilding, finding joy despite everything that had been taken from them. I pressed send. Life after betrayal wasn't about forgetting or even necessarily forgiving. It was about reclaiming your story, your worth, your ability to discern truth from lies. It was about honoring your pain without being defined by it. About recognizing that while trust, once broken, could never be fully restored with the person who shattered it, your capacity to trust itself could heal, grow, even strengthen. That was the true resolution. Not the neat tying of loose ends, but the messy, courageous choice to begin again. To step forward with eyes wide open, heart guarded but not closed. Wisdom hard-won but valuable beyond measure. My phone buzzed with a response from David. No plans. What did you have in mind? I smiled and began to type.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.